year when we celebrate that. And thank you, Lord, for that. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So anyway, the Christmas tree is kind of an interesting thing. As you get older, you'll hear a lot of people say that the tree's a pagan tree and all kinds of stuff. Do you know what pagan is?
No.
Person that doesn't believe that they believe in other things, basically. But I studied a little bit about the tree, and so I wanted to just read this to you, because when you look at it, I want it to mean something to you. It's just not something we just throw up at Christmas. Ancient people hung boughs of pine and spruce over doors and windows to ward off evil spirits and witches. So do you know what a bough is, or a bow?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, if you took a branch, that'd be called a bough of a tree. They would, like you look around, you see these wreaths and stuff. Well, they would hang just evergreens above their doors because they thought it warded off evil.
Sort of like along the windows there.
Right, like the garland there. In ancient days, there wasn't lights like we have. So when it became dark in the winter, it was real dark. And so if you've ever been in a house with all the lights out and you hear the wind blowing and things get a little scary, well, it was like that for them. They had no idea what natural things were happening. They would think it was something in their imagination. They'd make it bad and worse than it was. And so they hung things up. They thought that would help ward it off.
So just like pumpkins.
Kind of, yeah, kind of like that.
Jack-o'-lanterns.
So in the northern part of the world, with the shorter days and longer nights, they celebrated between December 21st and December 22nd. Do you know why?
Why? Ooh. Wait, for Christmas?
Nope.
For Halloween?
Nope.
That the evil spirits are gone?
Nope.
No. Is it, why?
It's called the winter solstice.
Is it called the winter
It's
solstice?
when the sun finally is at its peak and all the days start getting shorter. So that's when they would celebrate that time of year, because they knew that as the days got shorter, that sooner or later the days would start getting longer. Okay? Many believed that the sun god became ill during the winter, and the winter solstice meant that the sun god was getting well again. So, okay, he would start his I guess that's when the days might start getting a little the evergreen plants reminded them of the plants turning green again, because they would be green all year long. Now, the ancient Egyptians worshipped Ra. Ever hear of him? Okay. Ra was the sun god, and they would put green palm branches in their homes to remind them of Ra's triumph over life, over death. He would live again. Early Romans marked the solstice with a feast called Saturnella in honor of the god of Saturn and the god of agriculture. And in Northern Europe, the Druid priests of the Celts decorated the temples with evergreens as a symbol of everlasting life. And the Vikings thought the evergreens were the plants of the god Balder. So everybody took this evergreen and they had something to do with it. They would use it for whatever magical purposes or whatever worshipful purposes. In Germany is credited with starting the Christmas tree tradition. Okay? So when you hear people say, well, the Druids had a Christmas tree, now they had a tree. It was just a tree. The Germans started making a tree as a Christmas, in honor of Christmas. Okay? And in the 16th century, devout Christians brought and decorated trees in their homes. Ever hear of Martin Luther?
Martin Luther King Jr.?
No, Martin Luther. He's the one who started actually the Lutheran Church, I guess you would say, you know, and the beliefs that they have. But he was a Catholic who went against the Catholic Church because of some of the teachings they were doing, and started, I believe, I guess you'd call it Lutheranism. And so he went out in a different path, and so he's the one that is accredited to actually lighting trees. Martin Luther is thought to be the first to use candlelight on trees. He felt that it represented the stars of heaven. In his story, he was coming home from a meeting, and he happened to look up and just see the brilliant stars in the winter. And he thought, wow, wouldn't it be nice to put that into the tree also as God's creation? So they put candles on trees. Imagine how dangerous that is. just loaded up with lit candles.
Jeez, I heard it's fire.
Exactly.
I was reading about that, and they said many houses burned down.
Yes, they did. That's why it isn't a good idea. So if you go home, don't start sticking candles in your tree. The Christmas tree was still an oddity in the 19th century. And the first record of a tree on display was in 1830. So that's not too long ago, you know. It's 100 and some years ago. The German settlers in Pennsylvania, as late as the 1840s, trees were still considered as pagan symbols. So even in the 1840s, you had people considering the tree to be a symbol of evil. Now, in 1846, everybody ever hear of Victorian times? Okay, there was a queen called Victoria, and her husband was a German prince, and they sketched a drawing of a tree, decorated, and the family with their family. It was just a drawing of a tree. Okay, and had Queen Victoria and her family in it. Well, Victoria was so popular, the Christmas tree was fashionable. And even in America, the Christmas tree was then accepted. And the Christmas tree had arrived soon. Hand-painted ornaments came from Germany to decorate the trees. So all those little glass ornaments, you see the old ones, many of those were hand-painted from Germany. I don't know if we have any on there like that. No, probably not. In the 1900s, the invention of electricity, and soon electric lights appeared on trees all over the world. So that tree came from, the lights started in the early 1900s.
When was this tree
Hmm?
made? Tree made.
That one? Oh, I have no idea. Probably, it's a new tree, so I'd say probably this year or last year. Okay. Winter solstice means the sun god will bring the rebirth of the tree. The lights were God's creation in heaven, and decorations were happiness of years past and present. Okay, most of all, the tree represents the birth of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Only to Christians is it a Christmas tree, representing the reason we celebrate this is at that time of year. We know Christ was not actually born on December 25th. The point is not when Christ was born, but that Christ was born. Nobody can dispute that. And that's what you find out. Many people want to argue about whether you should have one, shouldn't have one, whether it means this, whether it means that. Only if you are a believer in Christ is that a Christmas tree. Okay. If you're a Muslim, it isn't. If you're a Jew, it isn't. If you're of any other faith, that's probably not a Christmas tree to you.
It's not
Angel looking down on me.
That's right. That's right.
It's not a real Christmas tree, but it is a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
So it's real and beautiful.
Even imitation trees still have that same symbol, because it doesn't matter what it's made out of. It just matters what it represents.
Our tree comes with lights.
You can have just the Advent wreath, and as far as that goes, it represents Christ.
So someone will, so he will leave presents under that?
Who?
Santa.
I doubt it.
Wait, why does Santa come? Why doesn't God come?
Well, we'll get into that if you want to. I don't want to blow anybody's belief. Okay, now this story is just a little bit different than what you traditionally would read in Luke. This comes from the Helium, but it's kind of lets you understand how people 1,000 years ago heard the Christmas story. Pretty much that simple. There came a decree from Fort Rome, the great Octavian, who had power over the whole world, and an order from Caesar to his wide realm, sent to every king enthroned in his homeland and to all Caesar's army commanders and governing people of the territory. It said that everyone living outside their own country should return to their homeland upon receipt of the message. And it stated that warrior heroes were to return to their assembly place. Each one was to go back to the clan from which his family members by birth in the hill forts. The command was sent out over the whole world. The people came together at all the hill forts. The messengers who had come from Caesar were men who could read and write, and they wrote everybody's name down very carefully in a report, both name and nationality, so that no human could escape from paying the tax which each warrior had on his head. That's from where you're from, what nation? You're from America, you're from Indiana, or you're from, this is the place you're from, but nations usually mean the country.
Where we were born?
Yeah. So we understand that this whole thing was to tax everybody. That's all it was. Good Joseph also went to his household, just as God, the ruling mighty, willed it. He made his way to his shining home from the hill fort Bethlehem. This was an assembly place for them both, for Joseph the hero and for Mary the good and holy girl. This was a place where in olden days the throne of the great noble and good King David stood for as long as he reigned enthroned on high, and an earl to the Hebrews. Joseph and Mary both belonged by birth to his household, and they were of good family lineage, David's own clan. I have heard it told that the shining workings and the power of God told Mary on this journey a son would be granted to her, born in Bethlehem, the strongest child and most powerful of all kings, the great one to come powerfully to the light of mankind, just as foretold by many visions and signs in the world many days before. So what is Jesus in this story?
A king.
He's the light.
A light.
Why would they call him a light?
Because he shines.
Because he makes the darkness go away. At time, it all came to pass, just as wise men had said long ago. The protector of the people would come in a humble way by his own power to visit the kingdom of earth. His mother was that most beautiful woman, took him and wrapped him in clothes and precious jewels, and with her two hands laid him gently, the little man, that child in a fodder crib, even though he had the power of God and was the chieftain of mankind. Why do you think it was important for this guy to say that he was put in a crib? What do you think?
What'd you say?
Why do you think it was important that people know, people that this guy is writing this to, why do you think it's important that Jesus would be put in a crib, a foddering crib?
Wait, what?
You know what a foddering crib is?
But
It's right there.
What is that called? What do we call
Hey.
it? Yeah, it's called a manger.
we call it a manger.
Now, you have to understand that this would be a low place to put a baby. Even the people didn't put babies in cribs made of fodder. Most of them had a bed they would put their
Father or
fodder. Fodder's hay and chaff and things like that. Okay, Then the mother sat in front of him and remained awake, watching over the holy child and holding it. There was no doubt in her mind or her heart, or in the heart of the holy maid. What had happened, it became known to many over this wide world. The guards heard it. The horse servants, they were outside, they were men on sentry duty, watching over the horses and the beasts of the field. Think about that. These aren't sheep. Why would that be?
Wait, what? What are they?
They call them horse herders.
Horse herders?
Why didn't the author call them sheep herders?
They stole their sheep.
No. Because
They
the
herded.
people he's writing this to tell this story to don't have sheep.
Sheep?
Okay?
This is the Hilliard. This isn't,
This is a different Bible.
yes.
Not a different Bible, a different writing. And the people he's writing to wouldn't understand sheep herders. So when the author wrote to them, he had to try to get the story told to them in a way they would understand
Well, how
that.
would people know what horse herders were?
Because with them being warriors,
Horse.
Right. How many sheep do you own?
300.
Three that
Right. Right. Well, and that's kind of the thing. It wouldn't make any sense to them. So he had to put this story in a way that they would understand that there were people outside during the birth of Christ, and they were watching animals. Okay.
So when I see a sheep
But
herder,
in reality, it was the shepherds he was talking about. Okay.
and it's just like God. You know, when we talk about God, sometimes we don't see him or hear him and stuff like that. And
we say what we want him to say.
you know, and that's why he sent Jesus, so that we could understand who God is because of Jesus. Right?
Yes, everything was said.
Okay. Okay, now these guys are setting out in the field with their horses. They saw the darkness split in two, and the sky and the light of God came shining through the clouds and surrounded the guards out in the field. Those men began to feel fear. Their hearts, they saw the mighty angel of God coming toward them. He spoke to the guards face to face and told them that they should not fear any harm from the light. I am going to tell you, he said, something very wonderful and something deeply desired. I want to let you know something very powerful. Christ is now born on this very night. God's holy child, the good chieftain at David's hill fort. What happiness for the human race, a boon for all men. You will find him the most powerful child at Fort Bethlehem. Take what I now tell you in truthful words as a sign. He is there, wrapped, lying in a foddering crib, even though he is king over all the earth and of the heavens and over the sons of all the people, the ruler of the world. Just as he said that word, an enormous number of the holy army, the shining people of God, came down to the one angel from the meadows of heaven, saying many words of praise to the Lord of the people. They began to sing a holy song, and they winged their way through the clouds toward the meadows of heaven. The guards heard how the angels in their power raised the Almighty God, the most worshipfully in words. Glory now be, they said, to the Lord chieftain himself, and in the highest reaches of heaven, and peace on earth to the sons of men, and goodwill to those because of their clear minds recognize God. And the herdmen understood a great deal thing had been told to them, a merry message, and they decided to go to Bethlehem that night. They wanted very much to be able to see Christ himself. So,
The end.
that's not the M.
That's the beginning.
It's the beginning.
When you said, would they call God or Jesus the light, which one was it?
I said that's why they called him.
Well, doesn't it say joy to the world, the light is born? Or
Joy to the world, the Lord has come.
Joy
Yeah.
to the world, the Lord
I
has
thought it said light.
Not Lord.
Something.
But that, he is the light of the world. And had this never happened,
We wouldn't be sitting there.
we wouldn't need to be.
Why? Okay, so why does Santa Claus deliver presents and not God then?
Okay.
It's because God.
Who here believes in Santa Claus?
I guess I kind of do.
Okay.
Ethan.
Okay, so the reason being is that there's a thing called, they took a good thing and commercialized it, okay? And Santa Claus has been commercialized. So now he becomes a person that has more recognition at Christmas than Christ. But in truth, Santa Claus loved Christ. Okay? Tell me why.
Santa Claus was Saint Nicholas,
That's right.
and he was a bishop in the Catholic Church. And so he was a bishop that liked to give a lot of things to people in need.
I got a
Didn't they
story
used to
here.
call him Krispy Kreme?
I've got a story here. So. In 2080 AD, that's almost 300 years after Christ, in Patera, the city of Lycia, in Asia Minor, this was Saint Nicholas. He became a gift giver of Myra, and his gifts were given at night, so the gift giver's identity would remain a secret. Saint Nicholas would be named the patron saint of children, sailors, and of Russia and Greece. He's actually born, okay? Now, Saint Nicholas was a Christian priest, okay, who later became a bishop, and he was a rich person and traveled the country helping people and giving gifts. Saint Nicholas did not like to be seen giving gifts, so the children were told to go to bed early, okay? All right. The legend has a story that a poor man had 3 daughters, and they were to be married, and he had no money to give them for their wedding day. In those days, the fathers would give money, dowry, it's called dowry, for when they married their daughters. So he didn't have any money. St. Nicholas, knowing this, placed a bag of gold in each of the girls' stockings while they hung by the fire to dry. Does that ring a bell to anything?
The Christmas
Children-
stocking.
Yeah, and children have hung stockings by the fire ever since. That's where that comes from.
They used to say, my grandma said that if you got an orange, you were bad, and if you got an apple, you were good.
Usually it's a piece of coal. So despite being quite young, St. Nicholas had earned a reputation for kindness and wisdom. In the year 303 AD, the Roman Emperor Diocletian declared himself to be a god, and all were to worship him. Being a Christian, St. Nicholas refused to obey the command. He was in prison for 5 years. Okay,
Wait, so why was he in prison?
because he refused to obey this emperor saying that he was a god, that the emperor thought he was himself a god. And St. Nicholas refused to agree with this emperor thinking himself being a god.
That would be like you hearing from your brother that he is God and you got to worship him, and you know he's just a boy, right?
So,
That's what Saint Nicholas was saying to the emperor, that he wasn't a god. He was just a man, just like everybody else was.
so this guy, there's another emperor, it's called Constantine. Okay, Constantine was the emperor of Rome, of the whole thing, everything Rome owned. And he fought a battle, and in the sky, there was a cross that appeared. And he felt that this was the Christian God talking to him, telling him that if his men put the sign of the cross on all their weapons and their shields, that they would win the battle. And he said, if I win this battle, I will become a Christian. And so the battle was won, and Constantine became a Christian. Up until that time, Christians were imprisoned and had a lot of stuff done to them. When Constantine became Christianized, then Rome became Christianized. Thus, Constantine had St. Nicholas released from prison and gave his post back as a bishop in 313. Nicholas died in 343 on December 6th. So, Santa Claus came from the Dutch pronunciation of Sinterklaas, and the name the Dutch used for St. Nicholas. So Santa Claus does exist
But not anymore.
in history, and all people who do the gift giving in the name of Santa Claus are just honoring him. Like I said, there's some people that will commercialize him and make him more important than God. But he's not someone that people should say there isn't one, because there was one. And anything you do in the spirit of someone else is an honor to them. We worship Christ in the spirit. We go out and do things in the name of Christ. You know,
So who gets the presents?
Well, it's not all about presents and who
No,
gets them.
who does?
Parents.
Well,
Or Santa.
if it's done in secret, you never know, do you? If it's done in secret, you never know.
Maybe I'm right about us.
Because that's the whole point. That's what a secret is. But I will say this, presents aren't about Christ. Presents about love.
It's
Christ
better
is the reason, and those wise men started the gift giving.
Which wise men? There's a whole bunch of men over
There's a lot over there. There's only, well, we say 3, but there were 12.
there. There were.
Mhm.
If you go back in history, you'll find there were 12 that represented. 3 appeared before Herod.
And then when they traveled, they had servants travel with them and things along those lines. So there's a big crowd of people.
So a lot of the story you hear, that's just kind of the director's cut, not the director's cut, but the cut that makes it quicker to present than to go back and give everybody's names and where they were from and what they did. The Bible will be 5 times bigger than it is now.
And besides that, God knew that pastors like me sometimes have a hard time saying the words.
My grandma says if Santa Claus real, then the Tooth Fairy, the Easter Bunny, and everybody else.
Yeah. Well, I will say this much, that the red Santa Claus that we think of today is a brand new Santa Claus. He existed shortly after the Civil War. That the traditional one wore brown, earthy colors, was pretty much,
So
didn't
now
quite-
you
We don't have any